Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Glad to have you all here. On this chilly day, I joked a little while ago, I said you prayed in July for some cooler weather. The prayers have been answered. It's here. Yeah. So, thank y'all for coming. We're not at our full strength here today in terms of our quorum for CYPB. A lot of stuff going on with different several of our members, so we're going to move forward. We won't be entertaining the items that are listed in terms of voting items, so we have several presentations and other things we need to discuss. So we're glad that y'all are here. So I'm Torrin Sanders. I'm the chair of CYPB, and so we'll start down there and then go around, I guess, and come back around. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you're with.
Sean Kelly, Public Allies Program Manager.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Jessica Eugene, serving as a public ally at NOLA Black Education for New Orleans.
I'm Zach Jackson, serving as a public ally with the New Orleans Youth Alliance.
Hi y'all, I'm Kiara Yola. I'm also a public ally serving with the Bartley College here in New Orleans.
Hi, I'm Lauren Young. I'm at Public Allies, and I'm serving as the Public Ally Project Support.
Hi everyone, Roland Buller, I serve as the Vice President for Student Success at Dillard University. Serve also on the CYPB board.
Karen Evans, CYPD.
Fanny Herman, Planning and Projects Coordinator with CYPD.
Christina Kent, Nolan Public Schools.
Jack Shavitz in the Mayor's Office of Youth and Families.
And Peter representing the district.
Jessie Hartley, I'm a social work intern, and I'm also on the board of Project Peaceful Warriors.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to go directly into our presentation from Karen relating to the Youth Master Plan, and then we'll go into our Public Allies presentation, and then after that we'll probably stop for lunch or get some lunch. And I'm just excited to see our abridged version. But go ahead, I'm sorry, don't get through. Go ahead, yeah.
All right, so when we last met, the board discussed some of the areas of interest that they had, specifically around how they wanted to get information about what was going on and how they wanted to play roles differently in the way that moved forward. And so I took that from the feedback of the evaluation that y'all did on the board and from the feedback that you provided to the evaluation that you did. And so using that information, we framed what our commitment was to you around sharing, and also highlighted during that last meeting that this meeting would really be primarily around the youth master plan. That was where we were going to start and end and provide updates along the way that made sense. So we're looking to share a lot of information with you today and to engage you in what's planned for the plan and how CYPB will be shaping the plan as it goes forward in conjunction with others. So the question that came up the last meeting was, what are y'all doing? What is happening? What is all this action or inaction? What's happening? And so we put together, thankfully with Maggie's leadership, we put together a sort of vision of all the initiatives, but more importantly, how they connect to the bigger story. And for us, as CYPB, the bigger story is what we're purposed to do. And I provided you with this sort of data walk on the wall that you'll get to look at later, but essentially CYPB has some deliverables that we've been aiming at but not landing on. And the big deliverable is this comprehensive plan. So all these pieces, as you see on this beautiful bubble graphic, lead to sort of the big piece. And the initiatives that are here that are active are reflected in that list there, but they also bubble up in the graphic. And so I want to start with the bubble that is the CYPB website. Gabby, can you go there?
Yeah. So I'll just take us right to the website.
So here's a piece of work that the External Affairs Committee, one of the board committees, has been working on, and that is to sort of lay out the substance and the workflow and the pieces of work that exist within the CYPB work agenda. And if you ever were confused or concerned about what we're doing and why we're doing it, you can really get a nice overview on the website. We try to keep that current so that you can find what we're doing and where things are going. And we've been updating it along the way with the level of commitment to sort of increasing its eye interest and lowering its click ratios, right? So for our purposes today, we wanted to tell you two things. One is that we got a lot going on, but two is that, you've got this video commitment to the meeting minutes that we were asked to have, and I wanted to make sure you knew where to find that. So in the news and events space, you can go to the CYPB meeting agenda and minutes, and you can click there, and uploaded would be the link to the video minutes. You also find any printed minutes there as well. Copy meeting minutes is there for your use. So that's just a sort of a landscape. Going back to the face of this website, you can see all of the initiatives with a good level of detail that can't be put on a graphic. So if you're looking to find out what's going on, you're looking to find out what's going on, you can go to the current work listing and you can pull up anything that's happening in that space. And for now, I want to point you to one of the really, I think, elemental pieces of our work to go forward. There's all of it is elemental, but I want to point you to something that was just released. Well, there's a lot that was just released. I want to give you the 211 NOLA story. So Youth NOLA 211, you have a little postcard prompt. We introduced it softly on Saturday at the city's neighborhood engagement summit, and in partnership with the Office of Youth and Families Child-Friendly City presentation, we did a really quick introduction. And the deal here is that we started this work in 2017, looking at a community mapping project where we created a community resource guide. Y'all remember that? Mm-hmm. It's still in there. You can still find it on the website. But what we know for sure at Move In was that we didn't have partners who were coming forward to help with the cost to reproduce that at a regular basis. And we found that there was real value in having the youth involved in its creation, because at that time they didn't know 98% of the content that was in the resource guide. They hadn't met it, they weren't aware of it. It increased the awareness and exposure, and a lot of follow-up from them to go and use the services that they found and been reported in the guide. We knew we needed another way that was going to live beyond our capacity to produce that. So we partnered with BioLink 211, who at the time didn't really have a very user-friendly format. And we knew that our young people were telling us that if it doesn't look good, we're not going to really go to it. If it isn't inviting, if it doesn't use language we recognize, we can't make that work. So in partnership with many of the service providers and BioLink's leadership, their CEO and some of their data people, we supported a focus group of young people to help us understand what they needed it to look like and sound like, and then created this Youth NOLA 211 process. So if this is what that looks like. We're in their space now. So Maggie, go up just a little bit. The good news is that they understood that this is really a foreground to the youth master plan. And so for CYPB and also Youth and Families and New Orleans Youth Alliance, who are the primary partners to making that happen, we needed to have a resource space where we could keep handle on what services and resources exist for young people in the city. And how do we hold count for them, and not just hold count, how do we demonstrate utilization rates or referral rates or value? And how do we make sure we can look at that across zip codes or neighborhoods so that we can see where need is and where need could be raised or increased in a different way? And this 211 effort helps us do that because they have the infrastructure, they have the capacity, they are the folks who answer the phone and who lay out the data in ways that makes it possible for us to use it. So if you'll scroll down, you can see that the face of this now has the pictures and the words that the kids gave us that would make more sense for them to be able to point and click. They also told us that we're not really the same. Youth and early childhood, not the same group of people, so could you separate that out for us? So we did a youth collection of photos and an early childhood collection of photos. And if you click any one of those, you'll go directly to the service that you're looking for. So, where'd you click, Maggie?
I clicked mentorship and community building.
Okay. So when you click that, it gives you the list of things that refer to themselves in that category, and then it provides you a map of where those services actually are. So you can see if you're calling in, for example, you can tell people where you are, and they will sort based on your location, so that you can address the transportation system based on where you are. If you need a certain kind of agency or organization that is doing a specific kind of thing, and they can work with you to identify what that is based on what the organization describes, then they'll work with you around transportation information to help you link up if you need to have a link to that. But again, our point was to make a single location possible where the majority of our resources are housed so that folks can get any time of the day or night information. The information here is only as good as the providers insert it. So we are actively looking to manage the movement and the flow of information to this site, because we believe it's going to be a way to tell exactly how much utilization we're getting and help us look at need from a very different place. It's not enough to just post resources. We also want to make sure that if there are resource guides created, that they are also linked into this central place. What we've heard from our young people is that we love a resource guide, except we don't always know where we left it. So could you just make sure it's attached? So we included and attached all of these resource guides so that in one-stop shop, you could get what either was in the database or what was uploaded as a digital version of the guide. And the New Orleans Youth Alliance produced their program directory for youth programs, and it is connected and posted here as a resource. We had hard copies available, but it's also available via this link, as is their website, to serve more. So every resource that we could put our hand to, we tried to put in a single location so that we could advance the possibility of folks getting information based on having access to that information. Young people told us early on that we don't know what we don't know. And so this was our effort of trying to hold it, but not just holding it, making sure that the entity that is strengthened and positioned, and it is their role to hold it, that they show up in the space in ways that work for us. And us is the community of New Orleans, primarily the young people. So Youth NOLA Act 211 is our effort to partner with Violink to position Violink as a resource space for youth services that can help us inform and grade the youth master plan as we go. That's one project.
And we just add on there, when I first became a social worker in the 80s, well, via Link, it was in existence then.
Yeah.
There was a book that we called it the Blue Book. That was like the yellow pages of social services, and so we waited for it every either year or every 2 years. Yeah, every 2 years to come out. And then after a while, they stopped printing it because via Link had financial issues or whatever. So I just want to say from that to now, and then I know post Katrina, when everything basically started anew for the most part. People who didn't know what was going on, and so I mean, with this being all together, not on electronic and synced up between the various organizations, the various resources, is like a dream come true for many people. This is like what we always wanted. So that's what many people know. I know people who just got started like, oh, this is it. This was, it is up to date, but we've never had this before in our city.
That's good.
Okay.
But the dream come true, it's what we always wanted. It's only as wanted as folks know that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so the risk that we have is when you walk into a room, have you ever heard of 211 and nobody says they have, is that there's a messaging process and an outreach message that has to go with it. And that is part of the postcard that you see out there on the table that has, we're pushing that out. The Office of Youth and Families is working to help move that out into the various sites where programming is going on for young people. So they're looking to put it in libraries and in parks and recs and in spaces where young people are so that people can become aware that it exists. We're also going to be doing a stronger outreach to the provider community to help them see the value of this, because it will give them a report about how many referrals are coming through this system to them, what time of the day, what the need is. It'll help them frame some of the information that they need. Also could be really good for grant applications if you could put some data in. So we're looking to do all of that to make it more meaningful on the ground. If we can do that, we believe it's a great partner to the Youth Master Plan.
I'm gonna make a statement.
Okay. Go in.
This would be very beneficial to the district attorney's office. We deal with victims. We deal with families. We need access to everything that's available. We have a huge number of social workers and mental health professionals on staff, and we desperately need to know everything that's available to service the community. I'm offering, if you would like to have a meeting in our office, and so maybe as many of our advocates can attend as possible, and I suggest that if you want to talk to heads of agencies, maybe we should just think about going around to different agencies to have meetings.
I
So I
accept your
offer.
offer.
So we'll have to
We'll
work
have
it
to
out.
Work it out. Okay, good. Y'all heard it, we're on the record. We're
On the record.
I accept the offer. And yes, we are going to be coordinating a schedule of to help introduce and to bring value to the provider community and the organizations that benefit from having it in a centralized place. Both ends.
And I think, but, you know, this may be complicated a little bit, but we need to pair this with our ACE training,
Okay.
which is a whole other topic, but it's related to this.
Which I have circulated around our office, and they are taking advantage of.
All right,
Thank you
so
very
now,
much.
now that we've introduced you to the 211, because that's been a fairly significant part of this work, and it still remains a heavy lift. The weight of it now is to tell folks that it exists and to make it valuable, in that it gets more content in it, and that content is continually updated. So let's go back to the bubbles and pick up another lightweight bubble. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the call to care.
Sorry.
It's up at the top. It's up above. There you go. So in hitting the bubble, you this is going to be on the website for your use as well. But hitting the bubble gives you sort of a quick overview of what was going on, what's happened in that space, and what you could find out more about. So I'm not going to walk you through all of the things, but I want you to see that every single thing that we've got going on, you know, while we don't have time in every meeting to go through everything, we do want to make sure that we have available information that tells you what's going on and how then to connect to that work. So we have two parts of this work that you now need to know. One is that the full report has been presented to City Council, who asked for it in the first place. They favorably reviewed it. We got feedback around the desire to have a sort of a working tool, and so we created an abridged version that really focuses on the work plan, the recommendations, and ways to sort of take that into the actual work. We're going to be building a implementation team to make sure that we move those things forward, and have begun to sort of surface folks who have an interest in this space. There are a lot of moving parts happening in the community around this work, so we don't want to have sort of these decentralized modalities moving. We want to see if we can sort of hold things in a connected way so we can build the right continuum and build out the stakes needed to support it well over time. But that's an example of really being able to pull up a bubble, find out what the summary of information is, and move forward with that information to any next step questions or concerns you might have. So are there any questions about that? Okay. All right. So at this point, I wanted to just pull back to the youth master plan. So again, clicking it gives you a little summary of what it's about from this standpoint, and we'll continue to update it so that there's a running list of news and vital information about it. But this is our start point for y'all to know what it's looking like at this point. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that you connected with and saw is the role of CYPB in the Youth Master Plan. So in CYPB, and I put the CYPB story on the wall for as a point of reference, because the point of CYPB's existence, we were passed to exist to assist in this assessment, alignment, coordination, measurement, all of these things that really need to come together in a comprehensive plan. And if that is our function, then that really sort of describes what then we should be doing in a stakeholder engagement way that's collaborative in its formation to deliver a comprehensive plan that says to this community, these are the coordinated factors, these are the methods that we're going to use to build a connected system of support for children and youth in this city. And if that is what we are supposed to do, then that names us as the steering committee for the Youth Master Plan. That CYPB is intended to develop, created by law and ordinance to do those things so that this city has a plan that is collaborative in nature, coordinated in function, to uphold positive movements and outcomes for our children and youth. That's not news to the CYPB members who've been around for a minute, but it is news in that we haven't done that yet. Transitioning you to this new space. The new space, based on our conversation at the last board meeting, was y'all want more. That's what I heard y'all say.
We always want more.
So this is more. So the steering committee role asks you to do a few things, and we're gonna look at those right now because they are the things that really are undergirded in this plan that the CYP is existing to do. So we have a slide for what the steering committee function really needs to include. And it's 3 key pieces of work and with a little detail underneath it. So first is guidance, vision, and oversight. So we are the co-creators of a common agenda. And today we're gonna move towards this results statement space. So what is the result that this master plan is looking to yield for the young people of the city? What can we say per the categories that have been identified that pre-existed us? What can we say those result statements are? Because it's in the result statements that we get to move to the right kinds of indicators, data indicators, and say, here's how we know we're moving towards that result. Then we need to have y'all in the space of sort of chairing some of the working groups that are going to be really drilling down on those action steps and on those data points to make sure that what that building really does lift up to the vision and the function of this result statement space. In the leadership space, we need you to champion the cause, that you sit in organizations across systems, you have your own organizational connected networks. We need you to be speaking this language in those spaces and looking for ways to align your organization and other organizations with this common agenda or these results statements that we're going to be creating. And then be the vocal champion, anywhere and everywhere. Have y'all heard about the Youth Master Plan? Did y'all know that what you're talking about right here really does fit into the Youth Master Plan? Can you join me in this meeting about the Youth Master Plan? I mean, we need you to be sort of the ambassadors of that. And then in terms of process, it's participating in the meetings. We have some challenges with our attendance, sometimes. We've been really good this year. We've got mostly a quorum meetings. We had 3 that have not. 3 out of 9 out there. But we can do better. And so this work requires our full attention in order to move it to the closing space that we'd like to get it to on behalf of the children and youth of this community. We need this sort of steering body to show up and be present around that. We're gonna be making sure you've got some good prep materials so that you're ready to engage in the right ways at the right times for the right topics. So we need you to make sure you're coming prepared to those engagements. And then partner with young people who are going to be part of what you'll hear in a few minutes, an advisory board that are gonna be the co-creators of this. We're looking to link young people in leadership roles to deliver a process for youth change in the city. And so you're gonna hear a little bit more about that. There are a variety of those youth organizations that are happening, and we wanna make sure we're linking them up so that we get the broadest cross-sector of voices that are young people voices in the space. And then commit to the duration, that it's not just a start and pull out, but commit to the finish. And that is not different from this. And if you see a difference, I'm happy to hear it, because I can't find it. So for the few of you who are here, might I get a verbal commitment from you around the steering committee function of CYPB for the Youth Master Plan? You see the intersection, the cross-section, the way that it works is exactly what we're charged to do. Questions? Concerns?
Did you say enough about, I know there was someplace that you able to pick up with the mayor's office, all the partners in the master plan?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because
This is not rehearsed, y'all, this is not rehearsed.
in your handout, you have something that looks like this. If you haven't gotten them, they're all along the wall there. And I welcome you to the table to get those materials. But in the handout that looks like this, this provides you with a bit more meat on the bone around the youth master planning efforts. But in the very last, on the back side, on the back page, you get to see how we, in our partnered space, how we're seeing the way the roles are working, how they work across this landscape. And if you look at CYPB, you can see what we're committing to doing. And it may not just be that, but it is certainly that. We're committing these things because of our structure, because of the charge given us by the legislation and the ordinance to deliver this process and to monitor its movement, its success, and its achievement. So that's your prep reading that I introduced to you. The copying is back and front kind of oddly because that's what the machine did. But it does provide you with the full scope. Remembering that we said a long while ago that our target population was birth to 24, and the efforts that we'll be looking at are really targeting that age group, all of it, not just the back end, not just the front end, but the entire continuum. Is that helpful? Right. So then what I heard you say is that you get the role and the cross-section of it based on what we are legislated and ordinance to be, and you're in. Did I summarize that accurately? Okay. Very good. So we have two things that we need to do today. One is that we're going to get to this work around this sort of laying out the results statement so that we can set the vision out, begin to set the vision out. We'd like to close that out in January. But one of the things in this process space, item number 3, it says that as a steering committee that we will partner with the Youth Advisory Board in co-creating the Youth Master Plan. And so, I don't remember when we had this conversation, but the Governance Committee approved and agreed to the creation of a Youth Advisory Board. And I then went to a youth-serving organization, Public Allies, to ask them if they might be willing to take the development of that construct on as a project. And Public Allies said yes. So we provided them with the framework that we were looking at, trying to give them a little bit of a recipe for what we were considering and needing to consider. And they then, in their collective space, took it and ran with it. And they are here today to present what they built as the proposed direction for a Youth Advisory Board as an adjunct to the Children Youth Planning Board, particularly as it supports Youth Master Plan development. So we have a couple options. Tell me what you'd like to do. We can grab lunch and have them present over lunch, or we can hear their 15-minute presentation and get lunch afterward.
I'm always in favor of lunch.
We want to make sure that the young people get to dine with us too.
Yeah.
So if that is what you'd like to do, are you all open to doing that with us today? Young folks, okay, good. So we'll gather lunch, we'll come right back to the table, and then we'll get started in a few things that set up your presentation. All right, there we go.
All right, well, we hope everybody's enjoying their food.
I gotta go, I'll talk to you.
And what's the name of the caterer?
Okay, bye.
Remember?
Chicken's Kitchen.
Kitchen's Kitchen. So, in case you ever need Chicken's Kitchen. So, I get to Karen so we can resume.
So I'm gonna create a bridge for the next presentation. In your handout, if y'all got this, there's this colorful picture. It kind of lays out the framework for the Youth Master Plan and positions what we're gonna hear next. So I just wanna run through it just so that we have a little clarity of the structure that we're going forward with. So today we got agreement on the steering committee, and that was formal. So in January, when we come to meeting, we're gonna have binders for you with your sections and the master plan elements, so you can be responsible for bringing that to the meetings and get those back fills. It's like the backup material information that we can reference. And it'll be where you hold all of your thinking material for this effort. So we're gonna help organize that for you for the January meeting. As a steering body, you need to be able to govern from a space of information and data, and we want you to hold it in the way that you get at it. So that is going to be paired with a youth leadership team or the youth advisory board. We're going to hear more about that today. What we see happening in that governance visioning strategy space is a lead out from the steering committee and the youth advisory board, sort of the approach to gaining youth insight. And so we believe that the start of this youth master planning process starts with an update to a youth narrative. The youth narrative in New Orleans, the narrative that youth hold for themselves and that others hold about them, is in absolute need of a reboot. The one that currently exists feels very much on the side of the deficits as opposed to the assets, and we need to turn that around. We believe young people are the folks who make that happen, and we'd like to see that be the starting place rather than looking at data indicators as a start point. So the first part of this work is in sort of gathering the resource players and the voices into rooms where we can start having the young people build out their own youth network as they see aspirationally their lives for New Orleans. We then need to figure out what then would that require in terms of build out. If that's where we're wanting to go, can we agree that that's where we want to go? And then how do we do the kinds of things necessary to build out resources, services, approaches that could make room for that to be true? How do we do that in a way that sets up indicators and measures to demonstrate progress and movement? And that is what we would do next in the action planning space that's listed here. When we get to the action planning space, we want to break that up into each of the categories. We've got 6 categories across the youth master planning domain. And so for each category, we're going to want deep action planning. So it's not the gumbo yet. It's just one ingredient. So each ingredient is looked at. We do a deep dive in small groups that has a cross-section of players, young people, community people, stakeholders, sector actors, a whole collection of folks who are interested in that particular category. And then in that category, that deep look at the data, the deep look at what it means, and then what then, given the vision, what then do we need to propose as action steps that exalt us towards that? How do we make sure we have indicators for those things that can help us see progress? What are the things that we need to look at that are going to be roadblocks or barriers to movement? How do we address those on the front end? In those work groups, that's where that happens. And that's where we need each steering committee member to take root and be assigned to one of those groups. So we can make sure there's a bridge between that kind of planning and the steering committee, right? Once that gets done, we want to assemble all these big ideas into a room and check to see if they stick with what young people said they needed. So they said they envisioned these things. We said, okay, here's what that could mean we need to be doing. Does that really toll us well? What do we need to sharpen and focus around? What do we need to take out? What isn't appropriate? What is? What have we missed? So it gives us the chance before we go final to just check our work. And we do that collectively and not separately. Then we go into implementation. Implementation asks us to bring the partners into the space that have already been participating and have them own this work. But this is not something we're going to put on the young people. Y'all need to do this better. Y'all need to behave better. No. There are systems and players and processes that need to be effectively changed. So can we make sure that if you participated throughout the process, can we now assign and align those pieces that get changed through you? And we do that through the implementation strategy. Once that's done, not once, but while that's happening, we're always marshaling this public will narrative. So throughout the entire process, we're looking at messaging and telling story and making sure that we spread word that this is the way the work is working, and this is who we have involved, why are you involved, and here's how you get involved, and here's what's next, making sure that the information is fluid and it's comprehensive across sectors so that we get the best possible all-city youth master plan we can create. With that done, we should be able to have something to say as our final draft. In the final draft space, we get young people together to say, does this reflect what we need to be doing? And when they say yes, we say yes. When they say almost, we say, where does it need to be better? When they say yes, but, we say, well, what's the but around? We've got to make sure we are standing in a space where we're in full agreement because they've given us full agreement. It is not a plan that's owned by the old people. I can't pronounce it. It is a plan that's born through the voices of young people, and we get to implement it based on the visions that they give us. So until we get permission to go, it's draft. When we get permission to go, because it aligns with all that stuff that we've done prior, then we go to print, and we go to digital, and we start pushing out the implementation and monitoring process and plan. That's the flow. All that by October 2020. Ooh. Yes. That's all it is, yes. So to do that, we need help. We need to have a young body of members who are going to help drive and lead this movement with us. And that is why we engaged the public allies in helping us to craft that. We felt very strongly that young people needed help define and devise the young people approach. And so we engaged them because they represent that and they are already in position who do great work. We wanted to make sure we had a piece of the great work that they're doing. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Public Allies to present their proposed plan for the Youth Advisory Board.
Well, I think it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, y'all. Thanks for giving us some time, with the meeting for us to present our work. So, we, as you know, created a youth advisory board. But first we wanna talk about who we are. We're the Public Allies. You can go to the next slide. We are a national movement committed to advancing social justice and equity by engaging and activating the leadership of all young people. That being said, we are AmeriCorps members with this term. This is an AmeriCorps program, so we serve a 10-month term, having to complete 79 hours. And with every public ally cohort, we are given a team service project. So Karen was able to come to us, and we didn't have to go out to her, to the community to work for a project, which is great. And so we created the Youth Advisory Board. But we want to talk a little bit about our mission. Our mission is to create a just and equitable society with diverse leadership to sustain it. That's what we aim to do, and that's what we're hoping that will be represented in our Youth Advisory Board as well, and what we created. But to talk about, we want to just introduce us a little bit. I know we did at the beginning, but there were some people that weren't here. We did that. Thank you. So, first and foremost, I'm Kiara. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. My name is Kiara Yola. I am a public ally currently serving at the bar at Early College. I'm the data manager and recruitment program. Sorry.
I'll start. My name is Maya Evans. I'm with Pride New Orleans. I am an outreach coordinator.
Hi, I'm Laura Young. I'm with Project Peace Wars. I'm a program coordinator. I'm Jessica Eugene. I'm with EMOLA Black Education for New Orleans, and I'm the data and communications coordinator.
I am Zach Jackson, outreach coordinator at the New Orleans Youth Alliance.
What's Peaceful Warriors?
Project Peaceful Warriors. It's a trauma-informed organization that teaches mindfulness and yoga to. It's in like our program in schools and in the community. We also do offer PD to teachers every Saturday and whatnot.
So, what did we do for this project? So, we were tasked with conducting a series of focus groups. Oh, I pressed the button. Okay, great. We conducted a series of focus groups, and then we created the basic framework for the Youth Advisory Board. And so within that framework, that included coming up with a mission, a purpose, bylaws, member role descriptions, the recruitment process to actually get young people onto the Youth Advisory Board, and a training and development plan. And we'll go through all of these more in depth as we go through the slides. Okay, there we go. So the first thing that we started with was a series of focus groups. We conducted a series of focus groups consisting of young people ages 11 through 24 at various youth programs within the city of New Orleans. In these groups, the focus groups, we found that young people have many concerns within their communities and their neighborhoods, including over-policing, feeling unsafe, lack of safety, lack of access to basic needs such as grocery stores, hospitals, clothing stores, those sorts of things. And the youth also mentioned that they wish that they were seeing more investment being placed within their communities instead of them having to go out to other communities and other neighborhoods to get their basic necessities met. So within each focus group, we had different age groups in each focus group, and so they of course had different things that were at the top of their mind because of that. The older young adults, they had more of a broader scope of what was going on and what they were seeing versus not seeing within their neighborhoods, and they had a bigger range of things within their discussions. They seem to be more interested in a broader variety of issues. Overall, the young people were extremely interested in the possibility of one, there being a youth advisory board, and then also a large interest in actually participating within these youth advisory boards. One thing that they did mention was needing some sort of incentive to really seal the deal for them so that they're able to have some sort of compensation for their time and their work. A couple of things that they mentioned for this were like small monetary reimbursement, food, childcare, and transportation to and from the meetings.
Our mission for the Youth Advisory Board is that there will be a young body of young people vocalizing the needs of the youth population by serving as advisors and ambassadors to the New Orleans Children and Youth Planning Board. We strive to create and nurture a network to build youth as decision makers within and outside of CYPB in order to reinforce CYPB's mission of empowering and assisting the young people of New Orleans. Our purpose. The purpose of the Youth Advisory Board is to provide advice, input, and feedback, contribute to and inform CYPB programming while acting as ambassadors and leaders for youth service in their communities. The Youth Advisory Board serves to participate in the formulation of and to be a voice in the creation of the comprehensive plan for services and programs for the children and youth of New Orleans.
The Youth Advisory Board will be comprised of a minimum of 11 to 25 members. There will be 6 leadership roles that will be elected through nomination by voting, by the Youth Advisory Board. Chair, Vice Chair, Treasurer, Secretary, Social Media Chair, and Recruitment Chair. They will meet bi-monthly, and they will all their meetings will be guided through by the bylaws.
So with that being said, the Youth Advisory Board will need CYPB to assist, of course, to help us facilitate meeting logistics and participation to make sure everything is going accordingly. And also to ensure the processes and work of the YAB is successful. Yeah.
The Youth Advisory Board member positions. So as a board member, they will be a role model to other youth who want to be leaders in their community just like them. This is an opportunity and a challenge to practice important leadership skills and to guide and inspire future leaders. For the example that you set, through your motivation, your energy, and their commitment, will affect not only their fellow CYPB Youth Advisory Board members, but also our engagement with youth in New Orleans, around New Orleans. The responsibilities, they are to commit to the mission and work of CYPB Youth Advisory Board, attend bi-monthly meetings, not missing more than 2, act as an ambassador advocate for CYPB in the community, communicate regularly with council, supervisor, and other appropriate parties on a regular basis. Board members are encouraged to keep in touch with each other and to provide encouragement and support, keep a written journal of all activities and completed during their time as a board member. Uphold the created group norms by the group for the group.
So youth board recruitment goal is to attest highly qualified youth from marginalized communities and to be a pool of qualified applicants that include representation of those communities. And you're looking for those who are passionate about bringing positive change to New Orleans. And who are we looking for? We're looking for diverse high schoolers and young adults between the ages of 14 and 24. Young people who are passionate about bringing positive change, youth who are knowledgeable or would like to learn more about social justice in the city.
So at the beginning of our presentation, I mentioned the training and development, and these are just a few additional trainings, in addition to being an actual board member and sitting in the meetings and making decisions for other young people in the city, we're envisioning that they will go through a series of trainings, and these are some of the ones that we came up with. So a training on the CYPB mission, vision, and just an onboarding experience for them. Root causes of social injustices, group facilitation, meeting facilitation, so that they can learn how to become better leaders within their own communities outside of the Youth Advisory Board. Understanding local government and systems, strategic planning, public speaking and communication, conflict styles, and collective decision-making strategies. So with that being said, does anyone have any questions?
So have you already identified potential places for some of these youth? Or I guess where did you get the focus group youth from? And are
Yeah,
those
so-
sources you're going to use? Okay, yeah.
So we conducted a total of 3 focus groups, one at Dancing Grounds, one at Bard Early College, and then one at NOYA. So NOYA, New Orleans Youth Alliance, and Bard Early College actually have current public allies there. So they're already working with young people there. Dancing Grounds had a public ally a couple of months ago, but she graduated from the program, and I currently work there, and I work with young people there. So we were pulling from different places that we already work with and engage with youth, just because it's easier that way. We know the people there. Yeah.
Because the plan for sort of recruiting youth, right? So how are you, I mean, do you have an idea of how you, I think it was what, up to 24 youth in terms of how you're going to recruit them?
For recruitment, I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous, but we'll think about having them do tabling and events. Going out to schools and stuff. And also programs that cater to those who are older young adults.
We also created, or Maya actually created, a list of different strategies that could be employed for y'all for whenever you do start the process of creating the Youth Advisory Board. And so it mentioned some of the things that she was just saying, like going to different schools and various youth organizations, and we also made like an application type Google form so that kids who are interested can go through a process of like being interviewed and that sort of thing to mimic what it's actually like to be a professional. I cut someone off. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
And you said 5 monthly, so was that every other month or?
Twice a month.
Twice a month, okay.
Twice a month,
Or-
yeah. Yeah, we were trying to mimic,
Yeah.
the CYPB schedule, but
Okay.
we heard that y'all are switching to once a week.
No, we are not switching to once a week.
Once a month. Yeah.
But in service to the youth master plan development, we will need to go more frequently, so once a month would be our proposed strategy in the new year.
Yeah, you did that.
And I think there's, I think so thinking about the youth advisory board and the meeting schedule, I mean, one is like, too many meetings and it's hard to get everybody to the meetings, but if you don't have enough, then you lose that energy, right? So I think that's gonna be finding that balance, is gonna be, and I don't know, I mean, 2 a month might, that actually might be, and that's a lot to get you there, not you, but,
So let me just offer some information. The Public Allies put together this process and tools that support the process to actually launch this. They're not going to be the ones who implement it, they give us a recipe,
okay,
the full recipe for implementation. And so this was the overview of that.
okay.
It comes with a host of tools that can be used to afford some
Gotcha.
smooth operation around the implementation. The next step for us as an organization is that we are going to be, we'll be an organization that hosts an ally. So the ally, this is their task. Implementation is the ally's task. In addition, we've got plans for better messaging. We'll include this in our messaging formula to begin to sort of access this. We talked about this, the steering committee, and we're needing folks to use their organizational platforms and networks to put information out for you. This would be a recruitment opportunity. We would package for you a way to share this instantly, and so we would just simply give you the recipe to instant share in your network so that we could get back the most possible candidates, and then we'd set a youth-oriented screening process to look through and to evolve around who, and then make the selections to see. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be in touch with the package that gives you sort of the nest views to sort of move this out, and then to have our drawdown in terms of how it comes back in so that we can process through those steps. Their work was to take an idea and turn it into a thing.
Okay.
So they moved from this really soft, fluffy idea into a on-the-ground, doable action that's tooled up, that's ready to go. All we can do is pick it up and begin to park it in the places where it gets taken forward.
And our public ally would see it through.
Awesome.
Well, thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Great job.
Do you want to have the first slide?
Yeah, that's a good photo.
Do you want,
What do
you
you
want
have
us
to
to
say,
take
Chair?
pictures so you? No.
Okay, Oh, wait, it's professional service, I'm sorry.
Great job.
Thank you.
job.
Great job. So I'm going to point out that our real mechanism here is that you can't be a CY people without some CY. Yeah. And so they represent a way that we can use the thinking of young people to bring the thinking of young people into the CY space that we occupy. And it took us a minute to get here, but now that we're here, we are committing to doing that. So some of the recommendations they made, that young people tell you, we get paid to be here. Our jobs don't say you have to sign out and sign in. It's part of our meeting structure. So why don't we acknowledge that when young people are brought into spaces like that? So we've created a way to have the right measure of resource set aside to provide transportation support, because transportation isn't a bus pass. If it takes 2 hours for a young person to get to us, and 2 hours for them to get back, how much meeting retention would we actually have? But could I get a Uber card? Could I get some Lyft tokens? Could I do something that gets them directly in and directly out and values their contribution? Can we provide the right kind of sort of gift card? It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be a demonstration that their time matters. And we're setting aside those arrangements to be able to accommodate that and to not have interruption there. Because we wouldn't want interruption here. We have to do the same thing for the young people. So we hear their preparation. The public allies is prepared deeply for us to be able to take this and run with it. And so I'm working backward to prepare the framework that they put forward so that when our ally comes on board, we are really ready to go. This is not a decorator plan that we're going to set aside and say, look what we did. No, we're going to make this come to pass. And at some point, I would like these allies who presented today to come back and see come to one of those meetings that we're having, demonstrate that, from creation to real life on the ground action, this is what makes this thing go. And so that's what we're hoping to have happen in the near time. So thank you for your contribution. It matters to us. So we're going to ask you to keep going. You don't have to stay. We thank you for joining us for meals. We're going to keep working because we've got a few other things to do, but we certainly thank you for your contribution. We will see it come to life. All right, so next steps. We got some stuff on the wall. We have the last 10 minutes to do some stuff on the wall. And I'm going to ask you to take out 3 pieces of paper to sort of get us going because we need your input before we go to the next level. So there are the age and status grid. Note the coffee table order. There's the NOLA youth shift goals, and then there's the youth master plan stakeholder list.
What's the third one?
The youth master plan stakeholder with these two, the ages and stages and the no leadership. So I want you to know that youth master plan, that there's data history here in this city. There are efforts that preceded us. And so we don't throw out the baby and the bathwater, we pick up the parts that we need to take forward and use those parts as best we can. So for our purposes, since we're looking at birth to age 24, we can't just plan for the high school young people. We have to look at the entire continuum. So right now, we have been in the process of gathering general data that's available, easy to get to, but what we don't have is the results statements. And the results statements really do drive how we build a common agenda. So for each one of these categories, each one of these developmental stages and each one of the categories that's on the side, we need to be thinking about what then would be a result statement for each one of these age groups. Because we can't do a birth to 24 plan without having a clear understanding of the results we want for each of the 6 primary categories of the plan. So what we'd like to do today is to sort of break you up a little bit, only a little bit because there's only a little bit left, to sort of begin to break out what that could look like. We provide you with this list from Youth Shift back in the day to offer you some ideas of what might sort of spark other things for you to consider. This is not broken out by age group at all, but that doesn't mean we need to not consider that. We must consider age group. We are going to go back to this in January, but this is your foray in to beginning to name those result statements. Keeping in mind that we'll use the result statements that we can agree to in summary to identify the kinds of data indicators that we need to have range for. Got it? So I want to give you 8 minutes to pick each one of these categories is on a flip chart. This is kind of stacked, and I want to break up into 3 groups of 3 to see if we can hit as much as possible in this window of time. So y'all will be a group, and then these 3 will be a group, and then Torrin, you'll join Jack and Christina. Okay. And so using this information here, you can begin to think about what then would be a result. What would we want, not just for the kids that we think are going to be targets, but for your kid, you got a kid in this category, what would you want your kid to have the result be? Right? And if you can just do as many as you feel like you're able to do in your discussion, the most is the best, the least will be fine. But do what you can to start us in that way. We'll flush this out in a January meeting, a bit more time allocated, but want to get started in this space.
You want each group to do each age range?
In each of the chart spaces, there are different categories.
Oh, okay.
And each age range is necessary for each category.
Okay.
Oh, this is ours.
So you got 1, 2, and you got,
So each group picks,
you got 2 of them. Pick a wall.
pick a wall, okay.
And then for each of your categories.
Okay, I got you.
Flush out for age groups.
Okay.
You got markers.
You want us to write it on the wall, right?
You can write it on the wall, or you can write it on paper. You got back and front. That's the same. That's totally up to you. But make sure you put your group on top of you do it on the paper.
See, I go over here.
So would it from the economic stabilization going with that access to that? You know what I'm trying to see? And that is how we don't
High quality childcare.
Yeah,
For all.
So I want to point out that this is what the work needs to be about when we're talking about building this common agenda through a results-based position. Planning with the end in mind is what this is setting us up. It does take a minute because you could go on. This was just our foray in. Our entire January meeting is going to be about result statements. We'll take what you did and bring it back into the room to do that work. So know that you got this because you came to this meeting. You got the early adopters kind of information. You'll be ahead of the game. I want to point out that there's one other page and then there's one quick announcement. There's one other page here that you need to give, and this is the stakeholder list. This is homework. We're gonna send an e-version of this so you can begin to fill in or access to an e-version. We need to be able to reach out to the key stakeholder players, and some of those folks you know. You know better than we know. We could miss them if we don't ask you for your insight. That is the function of steering committees. You kind of help us name what else is out on the landscape. So this is just the beginning etching of that. It may be accurate or not, but we need you to begin to think about who else needs to be included in sort of the awareness levels and the support, particularly as it relates to the partnering around delivering this change in work. So have this, know that we're going to send it out again in preparation for our January meeting, but we really do need to begin to send out communications and engagement notifications to folks to make them aware again and to give them place and space for where their engagement will matter. That helps us a lot if you know them, because we can arm you with the tool and you can add a personal message. Okay. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Homework. So for today's purpose, we wanted to orient you to the function of your primary role, which is sort of setting the vision and the direction and the trajectory. You can't do that without a results orientation. And that's what we began to enter into today. We're not going to summarize what you came up with in this room now. We will have it available for our meeting in January based on what you put on these charts and what you put on your papers, so make sure that we have them. But that is what we wanted to provide you a sampling of today, so that we could do our fuller work going forward in the new year. Comments, thoughts? We have one announcement from one of our members, so I'd like to turn the floor over to Paulette Carter.
So I just wanted to let y'all know that I actually will be leaving Children's Bureau at the end of the year, December 31st. So I have not yet quite figured out where I'm going to land, but wanted to kind of say, I mean, I've been here for a while, served as chair for a few years. Really excited about the work that's being done. So I'm happy to have been part of that, but to just to say thank you for being such an amazing group of people to work with. And this is what I'm going to miss the most, so, good luck. I hopefully will be playing in this realm a little bit. Beyond the 31st, but I'll still be around doing work with children and youth for sure. So, and I wanted to introduce Barry Birch, who is director of our grief and trauma program. So, who will be sort of sitting in as a representative until such time as the agency kind of finds a replacement. So, a full-time replacement. So.
Paulette, thank you.
You've
been an amazing role model.
Thank you.
All the work you've done, amazing.
Yeah, and I think, just to see what's happening, it's just really, this was a great meeting to come to, actually. Yeah. My last meeting. All of the stuff. So that was lovely. And just to have the youth, younger people, but really a plan for more involvement with children and youth is great. So.
Definitely, thank you for all of your work. And when I got here, I saw you here.
Yeah.
And you were working hard, so thank you for all the foundation you established for us.
We have a direction.
Yeah. We have an amazing,
director with a direction.
Yeah.
We finally
Get a little chair.
swirled around long enough and headed there.
Well, with that,
I was gonna say, do we have to?
you don't have a quorum to
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
We'll do that in January. But we do, I wish you happy winter. And
Thanks.
it's safe and happy holidays. I will see you in between. We'll be publishing the schedule for the new year and preparing you with things before we get into it too much. But we respect and appreciate the contributions this day.
Thank y'all.
More dessert, please.
Oh my gosh.